The best coach's advice that I've ever gotten going in to play big games is you're here for a reason. I'm putting you on the field because you're good enough to be here.
Hey everyone, I'm Calen, this is Bobby. During the 2018 Audi MLS Cup playoffs, we welcomed several guest analysts to the studio to talk about their experiences both on and off the field. So if you like this clip, do yourself a favor and check out the other ones we've done with Taylor Twellman, Alan Gordon, and more.
In this episode, we talk with current Chicago Fire midfielder and U.S. men's national team veteran, Dax McCarty. Dax shared his unique experience of playing in an MLS Cup, the types of players you want on your team in those games, and the players around MLS we all dreaded facing.
A guy that was a nightmare to face in the playoffs and that we came up against a lot actually in Dallas was Javier Morales at Real Salt Lake. In his prime, one of the best number 10s that this league has ever seen. When those Real Salt Lake teams back in the mid-2000s up to about 2010, 2011, when they were at their best, it was because Javier Morales pulled all the strings. They had everything working. They had Jason Kreis in his system. They were really, really good. One of the best teams in MLS I ever played against.
Yeah. Calen, you made it to 2 MLS Cups. Who was that player you faced?
Ooh, I would say Omar Gonzalez because he got the best of us in both of those. But I would actually say Aurelian Calen, going back and forth. He was just this guy that would the nicest guy ever off the field, but on the pitch, he would kick you and then shake your hand and give you a hug like you were, are you okay, man? Like you were his best friend, and I'd be like, you did that on purpose. You could never get a sense of him, and it made you check your shoulder. And as a striker, that's the hardest part, is just to feel the presence of somebody coming behind you.
On the other side, the teammates that you want to have, what characteristics do you want when you look to the right and left of that huddle before the game that you want in that guy next to you?
I think you want a guy that you know what you're going to get. You want a guy that you know when he steps on the field, he is ready to play. And it doesn't matter if he has a good or bad game, let's say with the ball, the opponent's going to know he's there. And you played with a guy that I played with. We were never on the same Dallas teams, but a guy that we talked about a little bit earlier, Daniel Hernandez. One of, I think, an old school MLS hardman, kind of in the Dima Kovalenko mold. Yeah. He was a guy that every time I stepped on the field and I was going to be in a midfield battle, I knew he had my back and I knew the other team was going to feel him.
Yeah, the two things that I want? I want stars, I want mercurial talent, because playoff games get cagey, right? I want that guy where I'm a little nervous, the guy next to me is a little nervous, he can just take it, go on a mazy run and score. I also like playing with my friends. When it comes to a playoff game and everything's on the line, it feels like it's so important. I like feeling like the 3 or 4 guys around me are my close friends and I'm going into it with people I care about.
Yeah, and you also want to have a hard man on your team. Somebody that's going to be able, when Aurelian Calen comes up, you can have an Adam Moffat or you can have a Bobby Boswell to have your back to, do a little bit of some of the dark arts involved in the game.
I think he's talking about you, man.
Hey, you know what? Those are the fine margins that win and lose games, though. Guys like that, knowing that you have, each other's backs. I mean, playing with your friends, you know this just as well as I do. If you're really close with the guys on your team off the field, you're going to be even closer on the field. The best coach's advice that I've ever gotten going in to play big games is you're here for a reason. I'm putting you on the field because you're good enough to be here. Now just take that confidence and treat this game like anybody else, like anything else.
I remember losing MLS Cup in 2011 and getting back there the next year and thinking on the way to the stadium saying, well, what's the worst that could happen? I already know. I already know how bad it is, so you end up playing a little bit more free.
I like to be the underdog. I never wanted to be the favorite. I always wanted to be able to take the field where I had nothing to lose. I didn't have the pressure. It wasn't going to be in the papers, and it wasn't going to be humiliating if we lost. I wanted to feel like, you know what, screw it. If we lose, that's what everyone expected, so let's just go get it today.
And that's a great point, because the best playoff team that I was ever on and the best run that I ever made when I made it to MLS Cup final in 2010 was an FC Dallas team that was considered an underdog. I think every series we played in, Real Salt Lake, LA Galaxy, we were the underdogs. Nobody really expected us to make it to the MLS Cup final. And then on the flip side of that, with the New York Red Bulls teams I played for from about 2014 to 2016, we were amazing in the regular season. Everyone kind of labeled us as favorites going into the playoffs, and we ended up not advancing, and that was really painful. But I mean, sometimes that underdog tag can really sit well with the team.
You mentioned that 2010 final. Calen, what was the favorite playoff game that you had?
Well, I was just thinking back, and I was like, wow, I can't even imagine being the favorites, because all the Dynamo teams that we're on were always underdogs. And we always had a little bit of a chip on our shoulder. I think a favorite one for me was those matchups against Sporting Kansas City before the finals, because the finals weren't always the best for us. But I think there was, the home and away legs against those two, and winning in Kansas City to be able to go to MLS Cup and knowing, hey, we've got 2 weeks until Cup final, and enjoying the moment with the group.
Oh, Oh, that's awesome, guys.
That 2010 MLS Cup final was my least favorite playoff game. Let's just make sure that we throw that.
All of the MLS Cups are my least favorite.
Right. Whenever you lose a final, it's going to be your least favorite.
Oh, because you lost.
Yeah.
And it's a little cold. But was playing in it more fun? I heard Tim Howard say once he didn't actually like playing in big games because he was so nervous. It was so much pressure. Did you enjoy it? I mean, you think when you make it there, it's MLS Cup. That's everyone's dream.
It's the biggest stage. So of course you're going to enjoy playing in the game more. But I think the result is always going to dictate whether or not you enjoyed the game or not.
Yeah. You want to win.
Do you remember that 2010 MLS Cup final? I mean, it was a disaster. We were in Toronto.
Yep.
It was freezing cold with like sideways rain. Everybody was shivering. It was a nightmare.
That was Matt Kanji, right?
Well,
it was. Torres ACL, George John, own goal.
Yeah,
George.
George, one of my close friends, still won't talk about it. We're, 9 years later, and he still won't talk about that moment.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of Players Talk. Shout out to Dax for joining us. Stay tuned for our next episode with Women's World Cup champion Megan Klingenberg.
Don't forget to go back and check out our other recent Player Talk segments with Ali Krieger, Charlie Davies, and a few others, all available on MLSsoccer.com and YouTube.